Good afternoon and welcome to the Bradenton Kiwanis Club. We're glad to have you and our guests here today. Would you please join me in singing My Country 'Tis of Thee, the Pledge, and then the invocation by Janine Amick. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you bow with me? Father God, we humbly come to you today as we know that devastation has hit the Panhandle. We ask you, Father God, to give courage to those who are still trying to find loved ones. We ask you to give patience to those who are still waiting on electricity, water, food. We ask that an outpouring of support come from those who can give. We ask you, Father God, to also provide an extra encouragement and strength to the first responders who are working night and day, as well as the line workers. We today humbly come to you, Lord, and ask these things as we are so blessed in Manatee County to have not had any of that happen here. We ask you, Father God, to bless the hands of those who prepared the food all the way back to the ground. We ask your guiding light to support those who are serving both abroad and away. All of this we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You may be seated, enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back around 12:30. At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. You know, she's known to us. She's been here 3 or 4 times. Actually, I think this is the 3rd time, right? 3rd time. So we welcome her back, Chief Melanie Bevan.
You didn't set the box up for me.
No, I didn't.
How y'all doing today? Thank you for having me back. That at least tells me that I either amuse you or I say something each year that interests you. This is a great group to appear in front of. Obviously, as I always say, I work in just the greatest city, Bradenton, for the best boss, and I don't say that because I'm being filmed yet again, but the best boss I've ever had in my 32 years of law enforcement, Wayne Poston. And so really the ability for me to come here today and really a lot of the things BPD does is because of him. So those of you who have been here when I've spoken before know that I usually give, so I've been told, a very scripted, somber speech. I guess after 2 years, people, stopped like just letting me do what I wanted, and they started saying, "Hey, can't you brighten it up a little bit? You talk about death and dying and this and so what I just thought I'd do this year, no script, is really just give you a snapshot of the Bradenton Police Department. It may not be as exciting or interesting or anything, but I want to let you know really what we're out there doing every day for you, for the city residents, and really I know there's questions at the end, but if anybody has anything, and can you all hear me pretty good? So certainly let me know. that was a very funny video. So there's nothing I can say to start off with a joke. I always look in my book, what happened this day, 100 years ago, and they said Noah Webster was born on this day, Webster Dictionary, and so thanks to him, I won't be at a loss for words today. That was pretty good, right? 10 minutes out. But to start with, and I'm going to just kind of run a few things. As you know, Bradenton Police Department, we're a full-service agency. 120 officers is usually what we are staffed with. I usually get up and brag about the fact that I'm not like all the other agencies and that I've remained relatively fully staffed. Over the past 2.5 years, I've been chief, by the way, for about 2 years and 8 months now. I've lived in the county now for a little over a year. Such is not the case. Just some retirements that have come up and some opportunities for some of our folks to go out of state with their spouses who have had opportunity has dropped my numbers down a little bit. I'm not completely panic-stricken yet, but I went from 2 down 3 weeks ago to 7 down in December, and hopefully we're going to get back to the numbers we need, but until then, no worries, we're still out there doing the job we need to do. And what are some of those things? Those of you who know me know that community engagement is a very important part of what we do, other than fighting crime, protecting property, all the things that go with policing. It's us being out in the community, and primarily it's with the kids. I say everywhere that I go that these are our future leaders of tomorrow, and so the more interaction we can have on them, with them, the better off we're all going to be, because they're going to be making decisions for all of us in the coming years. Some of the things that we do, I'm not sure last year that I talked about an initiative that we started 2 years ago called Walking the Beat. This is my mandate to my folks that every day, at least once a day, my preference is twice a day, that you're going to get out of the car and you're going to connect with members of the community. Now, the first 6 months, I'd drive by and, they'd have people up against the wall or in the back with handcuffs, and I'd say that's not really what I was going for there. This is about getting to know our community and really understanding what their issues and problems are, and they're slowly, I think, understanding that. This year alone, we've put in 4,680 hours of that type of engagement with our community members, and I think that's noteworthy, and I think that is why our agency's reputation is getting better. Holiday fundraiser, when I first arrived in February, I went through the summer and into the fall, and I said, hey, when's the Christmas party? What are we gonna do? And they said, well, we've never had a social, we've never had a picnic, we've never had one gathering at the Bradenton Police Department. And I thought, wow, that's pathetic. We need an excuse to get together and have some drinks. No, I didn't say that. But what we needed was an opportunity to come together and not only to break bread with each other, not in uniform, and get to know each other's families, but to do something that could also help our community. We hosted a holiday fundraiser. We chose the Bridge of Life Foundation, which supports foster kids that otherwise probably wouldn't have a Christmas. We got a lot of foster kids in the area, and while I appreciate that the families are really opening their homes and everything to them, I'm not sure going out and buying them a lot of Christmas presents was probably in their budget, and so our goal was to try to do what we could to put some presents under the tree for these kids, and we did a phenomenal job. Last year, we doubled what we raised. Everybody who comes to the social has to bring a present, and we really thought that was a great opportunity to bring everybody together and also help our community. Those of you who've been around, you've heard of the Honoring the Badge. It's been going on for about 10 years. We actually meet with some underprivileged kids that we've hand-selected throughout the community and go shopping with them at Toys R Us. Right. Okay, we're going to move it to Sears next, but we know that's not going to work either, right? So that's coming around. We are not sure what we're going to do about that. I know there's some other big box stores that have toy sections, but Toys R Us was a magical place. We're not sure how we're going to continue that, but we've been doing that obviously for many, many years. Our Christmas in July event took on a new look this year because we teamed up with you guys. It wound up that we both were planning on doing it the same day, and I think that went well. It was never really about us being able to say, hey, this is our event. It's more so just how can we impact the kids the most, and I think that our message got across, so we were happy to do that. One of the things that we did last year that I particularly was most proud of, probably, I had the opportunity at the beginning of the school year to speak at an event that was recognizing some of the safety patrol at a school. And who here was ever safety patrol? Come on, admit it. Or, oh wow, yeah, right? Orange belts back then. Now it's green belts. But something I remember from my safety patrol days is what? A badge. That AAA badge. And it was a metal badge back then. They laughed at me when I said, hey, where's their badges? And they're like, we haven't had badges in years. They don't do that anymore. And, you know, it's not something that's we can afford or whatnot. So we seize that as an opportunity. I had always enjoyed my time as a safety patrol. I am not sure if that's what got me to where I am today. But nonetheless, we wound up ordering some BPD, and I had one in my pocket. I took it out right before I got here to show y'all some BPD metal badges and went around to every single middle school in our city and gave out almost 140 of those in a ceremony. They got the speech, that with great power comes great responsibility. But I think it was meaningful. Maybe if not for them, certainly for me. And here's an opportunity for us. I probably had 25 of my staff there, for them to really feel part of our efforts. Every year, starting last year, we do something called Hoop Fest. That conflicted as well with our July event, but nonetheless, it was still very successful. Unfortunately, we had about 150, 200 kids come out. I did everything I could to try to hedge the bets on our team. I may have, for a day, brought somebody on as an explorer who happened to be home from college, and he was 6'6". I had no ethical issue with that, but we still lost. So we're going to keep doing it, but we were a little disappointed. We actually brought our grill out there. If you all haven't seen our grill, Sheriff Stubbe was kind enough to allow his inmates to make this for us. It's spectacular. They even did a huge iron badge, BPD badge on the end. It's up for rental if you guys are interested, but it's a spectacular grill. We brought that out there. It was great. We also participate in Coffee with a Cop. You know what that's all about. We've done 3 events this year. We did a few fishing events, which was a little bothersome because I went out to both of them. One was with some veterans. We took them actually out on our police boat, and other was with some kids right there on the bridge. And these kids on the bridge were pulling up fish that I have not been able to pull up in 10 years. And so they had a great time. I was just a little angry about that. I was very jealous. But that wound up doing pretty well. I don't know if you all are familiar with our program, Bradenton Baseball Buddies. 2 years ago, I reached out to the Rays. I had some relationships there and said, hey, I know what you did for some of these other cities. You got to do it for Bradenton. They actually, and I did have one of those in my pocket. Every year, at the start of the season, they give me 1,000 of these vouchers. Each one of these is good for 4 regular season tickets to any Tampa Bay Rays game. That means I can give out 4,000 tickets a year to Tampa Bay Rays games. There's no hold, or at least there wasn't this last year, no blackout dates. It's also good for a free Slurpee, most importantly. We did a great job this year. We typically like to emphasize giving them to kids who have done an act of volunteerism, but usually as the season progresses, I have people coming and asking me, and I just try to give them to people who've done something great for their community, an act of kindness, an act of volunteerism, and it's really worked out well. I'm hoping that that is going to continue next year. I go begging every year, so I doubt that they're going to turn me away. Every year we participate in the torch run. For those of you who like to do 5Ks, you should look out for that. It's usually in April or May. They close out the Manatee Technical College, and it's primarily police officers and our friends, but it's a great 5K and it's to benefit Special Olympics. Special Olympics is the one universal 501c3 organization that we all in policing give money to, and so that's a great thing to get out there and do that. Just this last week, we participated in the Hispanic Heritage Night at Sugg Middle School. We're going to be doing Crime Stoppers Halloween. The list really goes on and on. One of the things that we do that we're particularly proud of, and I'm going to tell you that as I move into kind of a new topic, is a monthly meeting out in the field. Any neighborhoods open to us, we kind of select it based on who asks us first, or if there's some crime issues. We, instead of holding the roll calls in our building, we come out into the field, we bring our mobile command bus, we bring our vehicles, and we hang out all day, and people are dispatched and kind of respond there. And so that gives the community an opportunity to walk up and talk to us and just to be visible, which we think is important. All right, safety initiatives and training. This is sometimes a little bit more interesting for some of the folks. Last year, and so we had an event, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, last Friday, and we have actually started a foundation. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but one of the things I mentioned when I was speaking is, why does the police department need a foundation? Well, remember, there's only so much money that a city has, and they do a great job of saying, what things do you need, and what salaries can we pay our folks? And so anytime I can get more money from people to buy my own things as opposed to asking the city for those, and that means more of that money can get directed towards salaries for my folks so they can take care of their families better. And we've done a pretty good job of that. Last year we purchased a few more rifle plates. You're like, okay, it's a rifle plate. How much could those possibly cost? Okay, they cost $1,000 a piece. So they're pretty expensive. And so to try to get 20 people on a SWAT team new rifle plates, which has kind of become a newer thing based on some of the mass shootings we've seen, we think it's important. It becomes a big initiative. We also started, our department didn't have any type of special events response team. What is a special events response team, you ask? Well, protest that may not be as peaceful as we would hope. Events such as that. It's a group of specially trained officers that know how to deal with people's First Amendment rights. They know how to deal with angry crowds, that type of thing. Well, I have to outfit them in some pretty safe gear should the event kind of go south. So we were able to completely outfit some of those folks. Something you're going to be seeing in the next few months, and you're already seeing it now. I'm old-fashioned. I don't know too many people anymore that wear a patent leather gun belt, but I've been wearing a patent leather gun belt for 20 years since I became a supervisor. It's not really good for your back. It's not really good for your hips. It might look nice, and my officers may look sharp, and it's taken me a while to come to terms with that, but it's not the best for them. Police officers have a tenfold incidence, I'm trying to say that right, of hip issues and back issues. When I left St. Pete, 2 colleagues of mine under the age of 50 were recovering from hip replacement, right? Under 50, hip replacement. It's due to gun belts and getting in and out of the cars. And so we were one of the first agencies in the state to go to a new belt. It's got padding underneath it. It's supposed to displace the weight a little bit more evenly. The other thing you're going to be seeing in the next few months is a new vest carrier. The police officers are required to wear bulletproof vests. You think that's probably, well, yeah, right? Not everybody can do that because of unions primarily or cost. Only about 25% of agencies nationwide have a mandated vest policy. I won't even get into all that. And typically you don't even really know because, right, they're under the shirts. We're going to be putting them outside of the shirts in a vest carrier with some mollies on it. It's going to look a little bit more tactical, but once again, it's going to take 20 pounds of weight off my folks' hips and put it onto their chest, and it places it a little bit better. It's a great thing. I've come to terms with the fact that they just don't look as sharp as they used to because their health and wellness is more important to me. You've probably seen some SUVs tooling about. I was talking to my table, and after Hurricane Irma last year, that reinforced why we made a few purchases that we wound up making, but more so why I was just up at a conference, and I came back to tell Carl Callahan, look, these cars, my police officers are getting bigger, and these cars are getting smaller. SUVs are where it's at. It helps with, getting in and out, and it's just a safer vehicle. They're expensive, but I really think that you're going to see that as a new trend, and it helps us to get around, when we're looking at some of the events with this weather that, knock on wood, has so far missed us pretty good. We made sure everybody had gun lights. Those are important. You may work during the daytime, but you never know when you're going to be going somewhere that's a little hairy and it's dark. For those of you who are gun groupies, since I've become a police officer, as a duty weapon, not when I was undercover, but I started with a 38, then we went to the 9mm, and then they said, no, the 9mm is really not where it's at anymore, let's go to the 40, Glock 40, and so then we went to the Glock 40, and then they're like, okay, well the 40's no good anymore, let's go to the Glock 45, and then I came to Bradenton, and they're like, oh no, we've decided we're back to the Glock 40, and so I went up to a FBI training session here a couple months ago and learned that now they're saying, we don't know about the 40-45, everybody should be going back to the 9. It all comes around full circle, right? Thank goodness they're not going to bring us back to the 38s, although I still have my 38. It's not so much the gun, but the 9mm round is apparently just the best on the market today. And things like that are important to us because we have to worry about penetration. We have to worry about shooting at windshields. We have to worry about whether we want it to go through a wall or we don't want it to go through a wall. And so, we're looking potentially in the next 2 years, maybe my SWAT team here initially of going away again from our duty weapon, which of course can be a pretty costly endeavor. But when it comes to things like that, you really got to make sure that if they need them and if it's the right thing and the safest thing for our community, then we need to go that route. We're going to be getting new tasers. You guys are all familiar with tasers. They kind of have that on the market. There's really no way you can get around that. Although I was just up at this this conference, and I don't know if I asked them to send some to T&E or I just want to play with it at my house. It's a little device that is about the size of your cell phone, and when they shoot it, it shoots out Kevlar rope that wraps around your legs. Right? I mean, you guys want to see that, don't you? So maybe next year, right? We'll do we'll do that here. Who's the president going to be next year? Right? I'll put him up here. I'll have him run, and I'll try to, I don't know. I kind of the newfangled things that they're coming forward with. They've come out with a new taser. The big thing with the new one is that it can penetrate the heavy coats. I'm not sure if that really matters much to us. They just kind of looked at me. I said, I'm from Florida, but we're going to be looking at that. From a training perspective, training, and we were talking about that as well, training and education is critical. When I first arrived, within the first 3 months, I put out a policy that said, ending on December 30th, 2018, a new policy for education will go into effect for promotion. And I will say since that time, I've had a staff of folks, and they're not necessarily happy about it, but they've been going back to school. And, I debate this topic with people. I think there's people who are great cops, and I'm not so sure that college makes them better cops per se, but I think it teaches them critical thinking. I think it gives them the opportunity to understand. We know what college life is like. It's a melting pot of attitudes and beliefs, and it gives them an opportunity to really expand their horizons a little bit. And I think what that gives me is a potentially better leader, and they've taken that seriously. And so I'm going to be pleased this season as we prepare to promote quite a few people that the education of my folks has just increased dramatically. The training this past year has been with a strong emphasis on rapid response. I can tell you that what happened in Parkland Some of the concerns that folks had with the response of the officers will not happen here. We've trained, we've retrained, we've sat with our officers and asked them, do you feel like you can respond in the most effective manner that we need you to? That's an important question to ask your folks, right? You know, can you do this? Will you do this? And I'm very confident that we will rise to the occasion. Leadership training has really been very, very important. Again, I think that goes without saying that long after I'm gone, I need to make sure that there's an infrastructure in place and you all have the best folks running such a critical component of this city. We you know, and going kind of with safety, but really more so back to the whole Hurricane Irma, at the end of it, we realized when we had to go out and rent 5 pickup trucks that our fleet wasn't really prepared to do any kind of water rescues or get to places where potentially we may need to go. And so we took advantage of the government surplus and went out and got 2 Humvees. I'm not sure if any of y'all have seen them tooling about town. The bad part about those is they don't have air and you have to drive them once a week. And so for the first 3 weeks, people are like, oh, I can't wait, it's my turn, I want to drive it. And now they're like, oh, God, we got to drive it, you know, because it's been July, it's been August, it's been September. But we paid, I think, about maybe $500 a piece for those. They have the periscopes, they're in great shape. They're a great rescue vehicle should we need them. And they've been very popular. We've been bringing them out to the schools. I don't know if you all have had the opportunity to see our armored surveillance vehicle. That's the one that's got it's kind of a recruiting. We have that equipped on the inside with cameras, so we may park it at a high crime intersection or location, a neighborhood, a house, and aim the cameras and do what they will. It's an armored car. So if you come up and try to mess with my truck, not only am I going to video you doing it, it's really not going to get you anywhere. I paid $1 for that, by the way, from an undisclosed armored Brinks. Everybody knows who I got it from. Brinks were kind enough to donate that to us for $1, so that's just been phenomenal. Our big plug right now, and I don't work for them, I don't own stock with them, Ring cameras. Y'all familiar with that? They have really kind of gone the law enforcement route and are trying to attract us as customers, and they've done it because they've given us about 20-30 free Ring cameras for use to get out into the community. We've coupled that with our Safe Cam program. Safe Cam is, you know, we've tried to scour a lot of the streets and say, hey, if you've got a camera on a business, on a house that aims out here, we just want to know it, because if a crime happens in the area, we want to know whose door to come knocking on to say, hey, do you have something that could be useful for us? Same with Ring. They have an app called the Neighbors app, not to be confused with the one that we're not doing. Oh boy, that's a warning for me, isn't it? I don't hear it. It's something y'all should look at. It's a great law enforcement tool. If you don't have one and you want to talk a little bit more about it, come down to the police department. We can kind of educate you. They're not that expensive, and you know, when it comes to evidentiary value, if something happens at your house, it's just, is that my phone that is doing that? Well, that's a big problem, isn't it? Can you, I know I'm interrupting myself. Can you pull that out and try to hit something and just silence that? Wow, that's pretty bad. I know. I think you just press the side of it, right? I thought it was you. Boy, I was like, God, that's rude. Like, can you guys do something with this guy over here? All right, a couple last things. Accreditation. I'm happy to report. The joke was, when I was doing my research to get this job, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a great agency, it's accredited. Oh, yeah, no problem, because accreditation is something I don't want to have to deal with. 4 days before I took the job, they're like, oh, yeah, we had to give that up. So needless to say, we spent the last 2 years and 8 months trying to regain that. We did. 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, they awarded it to us. It's good for 3 years. Very proud of my people, very proud of my folks. That was a good thing. We sent a group this year to Washington, D.C. So I don't know if you all know this. Steve R. Bennett was an officer of ours that back in 1934 was killed in the line of duty. He was the first Bradenton police officer ever killed. When I kind of settled in, started looking around and started asking, hey, do we ever lose any officers? And they're like, well, we don't know. And that's bad, right? These are people that formed the foundation of who we are today. They kept our city safe back when there was a little bit more lawlessness going on, gambling and that type of thing was a big deal. We realized not only did we not have anything internally at the agency, but when we had some guys go up there for a bike ride that helps donate money towards the museum up there, they realized his name had never been put on the wall in Washington, D.C. So in short, I'm happy to tell you that a dozen of my honor guard went up there this year. I was asked to represent the state of Florida and read off his name along with a couple others from the state. And quite an honor to finally, after all these years, we invited his family. He still had family members who we were able to help fund to get up there. It was a very moving experience, I think, both for the family, but also our folks to really understand who we were. I want to talk to you just for a second about a new app, because I think it's important I was at the IACP conference last week. Attorney General Pam Bondi came, and I don't know if you saw her press conference. She spoke about an app called Fortify Florida. It's FORTIFYFL, capital FL. That's the new app that was funded as a result of the Parkland shooting. It's getting pushed out to all of the schools. What makes this a little bit special is that the anonymous tips that go into this app is monitored by FDLE, by our state law enforcement agencies, and there's a mechanism built in that contacts law enforcement, and if we don't respond in 20 minutes, it just keeps contacting, and it goes into a hierarchy of who they're going to get a hold of. I know there's a lot of other apps out there saying nothing bad about them, but this is the one that is being embraced by the Attorney General's office, so if you all have kids or grandkids or know people at schools, we're saying that we think that this is a useful tool, and the Bradenton Police Department is up and ready, and we're all tied into it. We have it downloaded, so we know how to react with that. I said I'd mention a little bit about the foundation, and that's kind of in closing. I was going to show you guys the whole sheet of grants we've applied for. I'll tell you, we've been pretty phenomenal with our grants this last year. It seems like every time we apply, they're just handing us some money. When it comes to traffic, we wound up getting nearly $80,000 for both enforcement and things. The light and message boards you see, stuff like that really do a great deal for us. Some JAG grant funding. The best one, and that is back to the foundation, when I told you, we did this primarily so people could give us stuff. There was a grant from Ben Roethlisberger. He's a Steeler, and had offered a grant for cities that abut or are near places where they play football. Well, they play football over at Tampa, and we may not abut it, but I think we're near enough. We wound up seeing this 3 days before it closed. I said, well, tell them we're like the sister city. We host the Pirates. We love the Pirates, and then we're going to love the Steelers. And anyway, on the day they crushed the Buccaneers, they let us know that they were giving us $10,000 for a new dog. So we're going to have a little floppy-eared drug dog, and that was fantastic. But that's one of the things that our foundation does. We had a golf tournament this last Friday. It really was fantastic. A couple of people were there playing, had 125 folks come out, and we think we might have earned about $25,000 for some different things that we need. The foundation folks were asking me, well, what do you need? And I said, the storm, when it happened and they started a call out for help, I had mentioned to you early on that we're down a few people, but that's really no excuse when your fellow law enforcement officers say we really need your help. You got to do what you got to do to get up there. And so we held our breath and drove our old command bus up there and actually got there along with one of our SUVs. And so we got 6 people up there right now in the panhandling doing all we can, and we're just going to keep rotating those 6 out until they don't need us anymore, which if some of the pictures they've been sending home are just devastating. And so that foundation has worked out good. And with regards to the pictures, if you all have not logged on to any of our social media, it's phenomenal. Our Facebook, our Twitter, we have a new website. Anything you want to know about what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing, please engage with us on social media. We've really tried to become very active with that. I'm not a huge social media person myself, but I've tried to learn, because that is the communication tool that we're seeing even in policing. So please try to like us or tweet, all that kind of stuff. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you, meeting with you all. I told him, I said, "Do you know why I'm back?" And he goes, "The salad, the this, the that." I go, "No, nope." I said, "This is a tough crew." I go, "But every year I'm trying to go for that golden ruler because I feel like if I don't do good, it's going to be like wood or silver or like the plastic ones." I know I've gone a little long because my alarm told me that, or whatever that was. Is there any questions? Okay, we're good? All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, so you know the spiel. This
You know
is
the spiel.
yeah. This is the Kiwanis Golden Rule to help you measure the future success of the position as chief and the Bradenton Police Department. So
Well,
congratulations.
thank you very much.
You want to do another one? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. It's always good to hear what our local law enforcement is doing, especially within the city of Bradenton. It sounds like they're well on their way to great things. In closing today, just a reminder, several announcements. First of all, to all our guests, I know there was 3 or 4 of them. Thank you for being here. We hope you join the club. We hope to see you next week as well. There's a satellite club meeting tomorrow at the Good Brewing Company at 6 p.m. Interclub Thursday the 18th, Manatee Sunrise Club at D's Burgers. And for any other thing going on, check online. We're trying to put stuff online on our webpage as quickly as we know about it. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.